when we were discussing the fifth pair of Niyana and Avarana, cause of liberation and its obstructions or obstacles. In that, Shara mentioned Niyana as, or Dhamma Vavutana as Niyana. Dhamma Vavutana, in the ordinary sense, it is taken as the knowledge of the resolution of kusala and akusala, wholesomeness, unwholesomeness, profitableness, unprofitableness, skillfulness, unskillfulness. This is how we take this Dhamma Vavutana as Niyana, cause of liberation, in the ordinary sense. And uncertainty or skeptical doubt, Vicikiccha in Pali, is taken as avarana, obstacle to liberation. In the Vipassana sense, we take it in a different way. That is, the knowledge of understanding whether an event or an experience is Vipassana kusala or not. That is one aspect. Another aspect is understanding whether a certain wholesome deed is supportive or a supporting factor to Vipassana. So these two aspects are taken as Dhamma Vavutana, resolution of good and bad, or knowledge of resolution. This is how we take in the Vipassana sense. So these two kinds of knowledge are taken as the cause of liberation or causes of liberation in Vipassana. So that was explained yesterday, and today he would like to continue to explain on this subject. Before one is able to come to an acceptance or resolution, whether an experience is Vipassana kusala or supporting factor to Vipassana kusala, what one does is to hear or to listen, study, read books, discuss, and try to understand it. But it will not be so precise, so exact. One can only confirm with one's own experience. Because when you are listening from all sorts of people. Depending on the personalities, you may not be able to accept certain theories, certain ideas. But when you hear from a reliable person, through deductive reasoning, you can come to accept it, that it is reasonable. Of course, when it is given by a reliable person, a reliable individual, an authority, there's no denying. The one will accept it through deductive reasoning. Now the yogis are practicing the way of mindfulness, and some of the yogis, or a lot of them, have previously practiced. They are noting the immediately arising mind and body objects. And as much as they sustain their mindfulness, they cultivate Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration. And once they are able to attain this Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, they are bound to see the realities of mind and body, namely, this is the noting mind, this is the noted object. And this way they can embark on the progressive series of insights. Then they will come to accept and come to a resolution that this is correct. Prior to this, one will be able to overcome vicikiccha, uncertainty, skeptical doubt, with one's faith and confidence in the reliable authority, awakening one's faith and confidence, and try to learn the method by listening, reading, or even discussion if one is not clear about the method of the practice, repeatedly until one comes to a real understanding of the subject, that is the right practice. So this is how one begins the knowledge of resolution of Vipassana Kusala, whether this is Vipassana Kusala or not. This is Dhamma Vavotana. This is the beginning of Dhamma Vavotana, the knowledge of the resolution. In this realm of Vipassana, this resolution is taken as Niyana, that is, one notes at the moment of arising, at the very moment, while it is hot, to realize the nature of the object, sabhava, and one is bound to know this is the niyama, this is the fixed law of Vipassana, or maxim, you may call it. Only when you note at the very moment, you will see the nature, or you are bound to see that nature. This is the fixed law. That means noting ever arising object as they arise in the body. One is mindful and fully aware, sati panya, as one sustain one's mindfulness and be aware of the nature of the objects with the method of satipatthana. By means of satipatthana, one is bound to see one kind of nature or another. And this is how the virtuous ones of the ancient, of the past, of the olden days, through this practice of mindfulness, embarking on the stages of insight, until they are able to realize the path and fruition knowledge of the noble ones, and see Nibbana, and thus be able to be liberated from the round of suffering. This is not Sayadaw's idea. This is what has been described in the scriptures as, there is this expression, Buddham Buddhato Pasati. Buddham means the conditioned phenomena which are arising, and these have to be noted with mindfulness and awareness. This is seen through one's own experience, Pachaka. This is realized through one's own experience, because they are obvious objects. They are there. They are not just ideas or concepts. They are there. They are experienced. They can be experienced. So there are two aspects of this object, Buddham. It is they are conditioned. They arise through cause and condition. That is one aspect. Another aspect is they can be realized through experience. They are quite obvious when you note them. This is Buddha. So Buddha has these two aspects. One is they are conditioned phenomena, and they are realizable through one's own experience. Hence the expression Buddha. The example is when you're noting the arising objects in the body, such as hardness, softness, cohesion, fluidity, heat, cold, lightness, stiffness, tension, movement, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, all such and similar sensations. All these things are Buddha. They are conditioned phenomena. We say conditioned because they arise through cause and condition. So if one is mindful and fully aware of these immediately arising conditioned phenomena, one is bound to see them, observe them, one is bound to face them, be face to face with them. That is pachaka, realizable through one's own experience. So they can be realized. Then how to note them? How to realize them? It is given by the expression buddhato. Buddhato means as they arise or as each arises. So one notes as it arises, not after or before. That means when one notes hardness, one label as hardness, and one notes hardness as hardness. One notes softness as softness, and be able to realize the nature of that soft. This is the nature of the object. The nature is hardness. So when the heat arises, one notes as heat. This is the nature. And when one feels cold, one notes as cold. When one feels stiffness, one notes as stiffness, tension, movement, and so on. If one feels tired, one notes as tired. If one sees something, one notes as seeing. If one hears something, one notes as hearing, as it arises. So when you note in this way, you are bound to observe the natural characteristic of these phenomena, or individual characteristic, sabhava lakkhana, individual or specific characteristic of the object. That means heat, cold, and so on. All these things are specific characteristics. And also, if you continue to practice, you are bound to observe the common or universal characteristics, samanya lakkhana. That is the universal characteristics or common characteristics of all phenomena, all conditioned phenomena. That is, that the objects arise and pass away. No sooner have they arisen, they are gone. They don't exist more than one single moment. And one is bound to experience the unsatisfactory nature of these impermanent objects, especially when one experiences unbearable sensations, excruciating pains. One will understand that one's body is a mass or block of suffering, a block of pain. And then they are uncontrollable, they are unmanageable. There's no hard core, no substantial core in them. There's no atta. There's no self or soul in them. They're just nature. No substantial elements in them. They're just nature. This is given by the expression buddhato passaddhi. Observing, passaddhi means seeing or observing. Seeing as they arise. When you see as they arise, you're bound to see these things. That is sabhava lakkhana and samanya lakkhana. The unique or specific characteristic and common or universal characteristic. These two things are bound to be observed. So, as you note at the moment of arising, you are bound to see the characteristic or nature of the objects. That's why it is said in the maxim or fixed law, and only when you are with the present will you observe the nature of these objects. Noting at the moment of arising. At the very moment means presently arising, not past or future. While it is hot and fresh. So this is how one knows. If you are with the present, it is sure. And these things are happening in yourself and also in others. But those things which are happening in others are not so sure. Not as sure as those happening in yourself. So there are two aspects. One is immediately arising or presently arising objects, and things which arise in yourself, in oneself. You note at the very moment. They are all quite obvious if you note at the very moment. They're certain, they're sure, and obvious. And they are obvious also as they arise through the six sense doors. So if you note with mindfulness and proper awareness, you are bound to see the nature of this mind and body, psychophysical nature, correctly. To put it down to practice, to convince the yogis. Now the yogis pay attention to the abdomen to note rising and falling at the very moment. Now this rising and falling are Bhuta, because they are conditioned things, conditioned by breathing. As a result of breathing, rising and falling take place. If there is no breathing, there will be no rising or falling. So there is connection between breathing and rising and falling. As a result of breathing in, there occurs a rising of the abdomen. The nature of the rising are stiffness, tension and movement. They can be realized through one's own experience, if one is with the present. And because of the breathing out, there occurs falling, and this also is conditioned by this breathing out, and this can be experienced, realized through one's own experience. They are the real Buddha. Now yogis are hearing what Sayadaw has been talking, or being on the translations, and this hearing consciousness arises. Because of the eardrum, because of the sound waves striking the eardrum, there occurs this hearing consciousness. They are all conditioned. So the sound waves come into contact with the eardrum, so there is this contact. And then the feeling as a result of hearing consciousness, good or bad. If the sound is pleasant, there will be good feeling. If the sound is bad, there will be bad, unpleasant feeling. So there's there's hearing consciousness, hearing contact, and feeling. So they are the results of certain causes. What are the causes? The causes are sound waves and the existence of eardrum and so on. These are the causes. These causes give rise to the result, namely hearing consciousness, hearing contact, and feeling. Therefore, we have these three kinds of elements. The sound waves are striker element. It strikes the eardrum. The ear sensitivity is base element, to which the sound waves strike. And then, as a result of this the sound waves striking the eardrum, there arises the hearing consciousness. This is ignition element. This is Buddha. So, for instance, the ear arises as a result of past karma and mind, season, and nutrition or food. They're quite obvious. They are conditioned things. So these conditioned things are Buddha. They are realized through one's own experience. If one is mindful at the very moment of hearing. And also one is bound to see, or one is bound to observe the sound waves striking the eardrum. So when one is noting at the very moment of hearing, one is bound to observe these things, either the sound wave or the eardrum or ear sensitivity, that this eardrum is receiving, is a base where the sound waves strike, and then the hearing consciousness as a result of these sound waves. So they are bound to be experienced at the very moment. And then one is hearing because of the sound, the striking of the sound on the eardrum. So there arises the hearing consciousness and the contact, the hearing feeling as a result of the hearing consciousness, good or bad. So all these things, three elements, namely striker element, base element and ignition element, are bound to be observed if one is mindful at the very moment. So these observed phenomena are known as Buddha. When you say the presently arising object, or noting the presently arising object, or be with the present, means not to be with the past or future, nor to note what happens in others. The present is sure, as instructed by the Buddha. The Buddha instructs only the certain things, sure things, exact things. And they are also evident at the six sense doors. The example is when you want to observe lightning, you note at the very moment to see the lightning, the form of the lightning, where it takes place, its nature, and its function as overcoming darkness, and the manner by which it lights up the sky. That is the pattern of lightning, in a straight line or in a circular motion or circular pattern and so on. So in this way, one is bound to see, if one watches at the very moment of lightning, the characteristic, the function or manifestation. One of these three, one or all of these three is bound to be noted, is bound to be observed if you are at the very moment. Then you are said to have understood lightning. Otherwise, if you observe after it has taken place, you are not certain about its characteristic, its function or manifestation. Similarly, if you try to watch beforehand, to speculate how the lightning is going to take place, then it will also not be correct, not be sure. So the past and future objects, noting the past and future objects will not be sure. They are not sure objects. Only the presently arising objects are sure objects. They are correct ones. And also, only when one notes what rises in oneself, one can be sure. Otherwise, if one notes what has passed, or one speculate and note what has not arisen, or in the future, what will happen in the future, or in noting in others, it will not be sure. So we are not to note the past object, the future object, nor the objects which arise in others. We are to note the presently arising object. We are to be with the present while the mind and body objects arise, while they are hot, while they can be experienced through one's own one realized through one's own experience. Pechaka jnana, the knowledge which can be realized through one's own experience. So in this way, one will understand the sabhava lakkhana of the individual characteristics of the mind and body. In this way, it has to be, objects have to arise presently, immediately, in oneself, and every time they arise, one has to note them at the very moment of arising of the mind-body objects. This is experiential knowledge. This is vipassana, peccaka jnana, experiential knowledge, or knowledge through one's own experience. So as one cultivates this peccaka jnana, experiential knowledge, then as one is noted that one is not to note the past mind and body, or the future mind and body objects, or what happens in others. One has to be with the present and what happens in yourself. So in this way, while one is noting the ever arising objects as they arise in oneself, one can draw logical deductive knowledge, or inferential knowledge, known as anumana jnana, through logical deduction, that as much as it happens in oneself, it will also happen in others. So these two kinds of knowledge, namely peccaka jnana and anumana jnana, the experiential knowledge and inferential knowledge, are the real vipassana kusala. So besides these, that is besides peccaka jnana and anumana jnana, all sorts of conceptual knowledge, such as understanding or knowledge arising from books, hearsay, from teachers, or even conceptualization by oneself without one's own experience, not backed by one's own practical experience, are not the real vipassana kusala. So in this way, one can come to a resolution, one can come to a definition that they are not the real vipassana kusala. In this way, with this knowledge of resolution, knowledge of definition, the noble ones are able to realize through the various stages of insight knowledge, I realize the peace and happiness of Nibbana and be free from the rounds of suffering. Furthermore, there are these supportive factors or supportive elements to vipassana. So one has to resolve or define that they are they supportive to vipassana or not. For instance, this sila, moral practice, morality, is the basis for the cultivation of vipassana. Without sila, one cannot develop vipassana jnana. One cannot develop even concentration, let alone knowledge. If necessary, one practices what we call dhutanga, ascetic practices, as a kind of sila, and samatha, tranquility practice. All these things are supportive to vipassana kusala, and also similar other reflections are supportive to vipassana. So being able to define and resolve that these are the supporting factors of vipassana is also niyana, that is the cause for the liberation of the noble ones. So according to what has been said so far, it is a reminder for the vipassana teachers to note, not to just push the devotees with vipassana practice only, without the supporting factors. Urging the disciples just to go on noting and noting and noting, without urging them to practice the supporting factors such as sila, morality. For instance, for the lay people, the minimum precepts that they are to sustain is the 5 precepts, or Ajiva Dhammaka Sila, the alternate 8 precepts, or better still, the ordinary 8 precepts, and best 10 precepts, if possible. So these are the supporting factors. Without the supporting factors, if one urges others to practice just mindfulness, will not achieve the purpose, and they will think that sila is not important. Therefore, when people are practicing vipassana or teaching vipassana, people consider that morality is not so important, it's not a criteria. Because sila is not involved in the practice, the sila has been neglected in this way. So furthermore, one has got to practice or consider all kusala activities, all wholesome activities as being supportive to kusala. Otherwise, there will be the people become very sensitive and react negatively. So, without sila as a basis, one cannot practice vipassana. This is to be understood. Just like eating food without the mouth. One cannot eat anything without the mouth. Of course, there are certain special cases where transfusion, the patients are transfused with some food solutions and nutrition things like that. But this is special. This is not, realistic. So without sila, one cannot practice vipassana. Just like taking food without the mouth. Therefore, without the sila mouth, one cannot absorb or take in this samadhi panya food. So these are the 2 niyamas, 2 maxims. One has got to try to understand them. How to develop the wholesome consciousness, and what are the supporting factors, or how to develop the supporting factors. If one does not know them, one should study them. And in many teachings, there's shortcomings. That is, there's no such teaching of supporting factors. So it is very important. And in order to understand them, one must study, learn it, and repeatedly learn it, memorize it, commit it to memory. If one is not clear, discuss. So in this way, with these methods, one should be able to understand or resolve, define what is vipassana kusala and what are the supports to vipassana. As this is how we have discussed so far the niyana, and now we shall discuss avarana, that is obstacle to liberation. Being doubtful or uncertain that this vipassana kusala, this noting every arising mind and body objects, is vipassana kusala or not. This is vicikiccha, uncertainty, doubtful, skeptical about the practice. That's by noting, saying to oneself, or by noting this rising and falling, or mind and body, can one realize vipassana kusala. So this is the doubt. This is vicikiccha in Pali. This is very dangerous. And if one does not understand the nature of this Vicikiccha, one can be masqueraded, or that means one can be cheated. That is, sometimes people tend to rationalize between two things. When it comes to two theories, one tends to rationalize, reason out that this is correct or not correct. One tends to intellectualize. This is reasoning or rationalizing. And this reason can arise in the guise of wisdom. So this can arise in intellectual people who will believe, who are determined to believe, only when it is sure to them. There are things beyond the reach of their knowledge, and they are uncertain about this, whether they are correct or not. So, since they are not certain, since they are skeptical about these things which are beyond their knowledge, and they try to rationalize it, and they come to a resolution, they come to a determination, or they come to the idea that only when they can see them, observe them, will they believe, that sort of thing. Or they won't believe everything, no matter who says that. So in this way, they think that all these things, rationalism, reasoning, is wisdom or knowledge. So this reason can be disguised, can arise in the guise of wisdom. So this is for the intellectual people to notice, to be cautious, that reasoning, trying to rationalize between two theories, Vicikiccha, is skeptical doubt, can arise in the guise of jnana or wisdom. So this is very difficult to be corrected or to be improved or to be treated. The Buddha says, for such people, that there are people who are skeptical, who are overcome by Vicikiccha, and who are doubtful of everything. And such people, the Buddha says, I even cannot help such people, and I cannot put them on the right path, and I cannot treat them. So much is this Vicikiccha dangerous. Past 1 hour. We'll continue tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.